I still remember the smell of roasted turkey drifting from my mother's kitchen every November, the sound of laughter around the dinner table, that feeling of belonging. This year, I was especially excited about Thanksgiving. I had good news to share. I had been planning my trip home for 2 weeks, but something had changed in recent years. My mother's calls became shorter, colder. I told myself everything would be fine once we met face to face. I had no idea what was coming. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. If you enjoy stories about family redemption and finding your own worth, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. What my mom said next still echoes in my mind to this day. Let me tell you what happened. My name is Broderick Hayes. I am 32 years old, and I live alone in a small apartment in downtown Chicago. For the past 8 years, I have worked at Harrison Financial Group. I started at the very bottom answering phones and organizing files. Nobody helped me get that job. Nobody in my family pulled any strings. I did it all on my own, one step at a time. I am not the type of person who talks about his achievements. I prefer to keep my head down and let my work speak for itself. Just a few weeks before Thanksgiving, I had been promoted to Director of Operations. It was the biggest accomplishment of my career, but I had not told anyone in my family yet. I wanted to surprise them in person. To understand why that mattered so much to me, you need to know a little about my family. My father passed away when I was 14 years old. It was sudden, a heart attack on a Tuesday morning. One day, he was there teaching me how to change a tire in the garage. The next day, he was gone. My mother, Linda, was left to raise 2 children on her own, my older sister Sandra and me, and Sandra is 4 years older than me. Growing up, she was always the star of the family. She was beautiful, outgoing, and knew exactly how to make people laugh. My mother adored her. Every report card Sandra brought home was hung on the refrigerator. Every dance recital was a major event. I was different. I was quiet. I got good grades, but my mother never seemed to notice. When I graduated at the top of my high school class, she said, "Congratulations," and then spent the rest of dinner talking about Sandra's new boyfriend. I told myself it was fine. I convinced myself that mothers simply show love in different ways. Some children need more attention, more praise. Sandra needed those things. I did not. At least that is what I believed for a long time. 5 years ago, Sandra married a man named Derek. He was handsome, confident, and worked in finance at a smaller company called Westbrook Capital. From the moment I met him, something felt wrong. Derek had a way of putting me down without ever saying anything directly mean. He would make little jokes about how quiet I was. He would ask me questions about my job and then smirk when I answered. At family dinners, he would talk about his salary, his new car, his vacation plans. I would sit in silence, and he would look at me like I was furniture. The worst part was that my mother loved Derek. She treated him like the son she never had. She would cook his favorite meals. She would ask about his work with genuine interest. Meanwhile, she barely remembered what company I worked for. Sandra never defended me. Whenever Derek made one of his comments, she would just look at her plate and change the subject. 3 days before Thanksgiving, I called my mother to confirm what time I should arrive. I was excited. I had practiced in my head how I would tell everyone about my promotion. I imagined the look on my mother's face when she realized her quiet son had actually made something of himself. My mother answered on the 4th ring. Her voice was flat distant. We exchanged the usual small talk. Then I asked what time dinner would be served on Thursday. There was a long pause. "Broderick," she finally said, "I think it is better if you do not come this year." I felt the air leave my lungs. I asked her what she meant. She sighed. "Derek thinks you kill the vibe whenever you are around. You are always so quiet, so serious. He says it makes everyone uncomfortable." I tried to speak, but she continued. "Sandra is pregnant. This Thanksgiving is special for our family. We do not want any awkwardness." I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. I tried to explain that I did not mean to make anyone uncomfortable. I told her I had been looking forward to this for weeks. My mother's response was simple. Maybe next year, honey, when things are different. In the background, just before she hung up, I heard Derek laughing about something. The call ended. I sat alone in my apartment staring at the wall trying to understand what had just happened. That night, memories I had buried for years came flooding back. I sat on my couch in the darkness thinking about all the times I had been pushed aside. I remembered my college graduation. I had worked so hard for that degree, taking extra shifts at a part-time job to pay for my own books and supplies. When the ceremony ended, I looked for my mother in the crowd. She arrived 45 minutes late because she had taken Sandra shopping for a dress earlier that day. She apologized briefly and then asked if we could hurry because Sandra had dinner reservations. I remembered the day I got my first promotion 3 years into my job. I was so proud. I called my mother immediately, my voice shaking with excitement. She said, "That is nice," and then spent the next 20 minutes talking about Sandra's upcoming wedding and how stressful the planning had been. I remembered my 30th birthday. I waited all day for a call or a text from my family. Nothing came. That evening, my phone finally rang. It was my Uncle Ray, my father's younger brother. He was the only one who remembered. He talked to me for an hour about my father, about how proud he would have been of me. When I hung up, I realized I had tears running down my face. Sitting alone after my mother's call, I wondered what I had done wrong. Was I really that unpleasant to be around? Was my silence really such a burden? The next morning, I decided to reach out to Sandra. Maybe she could explain. Maybe she could help me understand. I sent her a text message asking if we could talk. She read it immediately. The little check marks told me so. But she did not respond. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was Sandra. "Mom told me she called you," she said. Her voice was cold, businesslike. "Did you know about this?" I asked. "Did you agree with Derek?" There was a pause on the other end. "Derek just wants a peaceful Thanksgiving. You know how you are. How I am." "What does that even mean?" She sighed like I was exhausting her. "You are always judging. Even when you do not say anything, we can feel it." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her that I was not judging anyone, that I was simply quiet because that was who I was. But before I could respond, she cut me off. "I have to go. Derek is calling me." The line went dead. That night, I received another call. This time, it was Uncle Ray. He still lived in Arizona, over 1,500 miles away. But somehow, he had heard about what happened. "Your father would be furious if he knew how they were treating you," he said. I did not know what to say. Uncle Ray started talking about my father, about how similar we were. "My father was a quiet man, too," he explained. "He never bragged about anything. He just worked hard every single day and showed his love through actions, not words. Being quiet does not mean you do not care," Uncle Ray told me. "It means you think before you speak." That is rare these days. He invited me to come to Arizona for Thanksgiving. I wished I could have said yes, but it was too far last minute. Before we hung up, Uncle Ray gave me one final piece of advice. "Do not let them define your worth, son." Thanksgiving morning arrived. I woke up in my empty apartment. Through my window, I could see families in the building across the street preparing for their celebrations. Children running around, parents carrying dishes to the table, everyone together. I picked up my phone and opened social media. There it was. Sandra had posted a photo of the whole family gathered around the dining table. My mother stood in the center, beaming. Derek had his arm around her shoulders, smiling like he belonged there more than I ever did. The caption read, "Grateful for my perfect family." I studied the photo carefully. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The table was set for exactly the right number of people. There was no empty chair, no place setting that should have been mine. They had not simply forgotten to invite me. They had erased any evidence that I existed. I closed my phone and got dressed. I decided to go to the office. At least there I felt like I mattered. The building was empty except for security. I sat at my desk and started working on reports that were not due for another week. At least it kept my mind busy. Around noon, an email notification appeared on my screen. It was from the CEO of Harrison Financial Group. The subject line was urgent and confidential. I opened it and read the contents twice to make sure I understood correctly. Harrison Financial Group had completed the acquisition of a smaller company. The deal had been in the works for months, but it was finally official. As the newly appointed Director of Operations, I would be responsible for leading the integration process. I would oversee all personnel from the acquired company. They would report directly to me. The name of the acquired company was Westbrook Capital. I felt my heart stop. Westbrook Capital. That was Derek's company. I opened the personnel files attached to the email. I scrolled through the list of employees who would be transferred to our office. And there it was. Derek's name, his title, his salary. He would be reporting directly to me starting the following week. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. I did not know whether to laugh or cry. This was not revenge. I had not planned any of this. It was simply how life had unfolded. But for the first time in years, I felt something other than sadness. I felt something that might have been hope. The following Thursday morning, 1 week after Thanksgiving, I arrived at the office before 7 a.m. The employees from Westbrook Capital would be arriving for their first day at Harrison Financial Group. I needed to be ready. I walked to the conference room where the orientation meeting would be held. On the door, a nameplate had been installed the day before. It read, Broderick Hayes, Director of Operations. I ran my fingers over the letters. This was real. This was my life now. My colleague Marcus stopped by around 8:30. Marcus was one of the few people at work who knew about my family situation. I had mentioned it to him once late at night when we were both working overtime on a difficult project. "You ready for this?" he asked. I nodded. "I will be fine. This is business. Just remember," he said, "you do not owe him anything. Not politeness, not forgiveness, nothing." I thanked Marcus and told him I would handle it professionally. That was the truth. No matter what Derek had done, I was not going to let personal feelings affect my work. At 9 a.m., sharp, the group from Westbrook Capital arrived. There were about 15 of them, all looking nervous and uncertain. A major acquisition always made people worry about their jobs. I understood that. Derek was in the middle of the group. He was talking to one of his former colleagues, his voice loud and confident as always. "I heard the new director is some corporate robot," Derek was saying. "Probably some old guy with no life outside this building." A staff member from Human Resources led the group toward the conference room. I watched from inside, standing near the window as they approached. Derek was the last one to reach the door. He glanced up at the nameplate, ready to make another joke. Then his expression changed. The color drained from his face. His confident smile disappeared completely. He stood frozen in the doorway, staring at my name. I walked over and opened the door wider. "Good morning," I said, looking directly into his eyes. "Please come in." Derek did not say a word. He walked into the room like a man in a trance and took a seat in the back corner. He did not look at me once during the entire orientation. I led the meeting with complete professionalism. I explained the integration timeline. I outlined expectations and responsibilities. I answered questions about benefits and reporting structures. Throughout the entire presentation, Derek sat motionless, his eyes fixed on the table in front of him. After the meeting ended, the other employees filed out. Derek stood up to leave with them. "Derek," I said calmly, "could you stay for a moment?" He froze. The other employees glanced at each other, clearly sensing that something was happening. A few of them had noticed that Derek and I shared the same last name. The whispers had already begun. When the room was empty, Derek turned to face me. His usual arrogance was completely gone. He looked like a child who had been caught doing something wrong. "Look," he started, "I did not know." I raised my hand to stop him. Did not know what I asked. That the guy who kills the vibe would end up signing your paychecks. Derek's mouth opened, but no words came out. I took a step closer. Let me be clear about something. What happens in this office has nothing to do with Thanksgiving dinner. I do not mix personal matters with work. You will be evaluated based on your performance just like everyone else. Derek nodded, quickly looking relieved. But I was not finished. I want you to understand something else, I continued. For years, you looked down on me. You made jokes about my quietness. You convinced my mother that I was the problem, that I was the one ruining family gatherings. You made me feel like I did not deserve a seat at my own family's table. Derek tried to interrupt. I never meant to. I held up my hand again. Save it. I'm not interested in your excuses, and I'm not interested in your apologies. I paused to let my words sink in. Being quiet does not mean being weak. It means I was watching. It means I was learning. It means I was working. While you were busy talking about how successful you were, I was actually becoming successful. Derek's face had turned completely pale. Here is what is going to happen, I said. You will do your job, you will be professional, and you will be treated fairly based on your work. But do not mistake my fairness for forgiveness, and do not ever expect me to pretend that what you did not hurt. I gestured toward the door. That is all. You can go. Derek left without another word. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Sandra. Her voice was completely different from our last conversation. She sounded worried, almost pleading. Derek told me what happened, she said. Broderick, I do not know what to say. There is nothing to say, Sandra. She tried to explain. We did not know about your job. Derek feels terrible about everything. I almost laughed. Derek feels terrible because he got caught, not because he was wrong. Sandra was silent. Tell Mom I said hi, I added, or do not. It does not matter anymore. I ended the call before she could respond, and in that moment I realized something important. For the first time in my entire life, I did not feel the need to apologize for being myself. The weeks that followed were strange. Derek came to work every day and did his job without complaint. There were no more arrogant remarks, no more superior looks. When he passed me in the hallway, he nodded politely and kept walking. A few times I even noticed something that looked like genuine respect in his eyes. I treated him the same way I treated everyone else on my team. When he did good work, I acknowledged it. When he made mistakes, I gave him constructive feedback. I was not cruel. I was not vindictive. I simply did my job. Marcus noticed the change. He stopped by my office one evening after most people had gone home. You could have destroyed him, Marcus said. You had every reason to. But you did not. That takes real strength. I shrugged. Destroying him would not have changed anything. It would not have made my mother love me more. It would not have given me back all those years of feeling invisible. About a month after that first orientation meeting, my mother called. Her voice was softer than I had heard in years. Derek told us about your promotion, she said. I did not know you were doing so well, Broderick. I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, You never asked, Mom. She did not have a response to that. The silence stretched between us, filled with all the conversations we never had. Finally, she spoke again. I am sorry. I should have paid more attention. I should have listened to you more. I let her words hang in the air. Part of me wanted to forgive her immediately to go back to pretending everything was fine, but I knew that would not be fair to either of us. My mother invited me to come home for Christmas. This time she said there would definitely be a seat for me at the table. I will think about it, I told her. It was not a rejection, but it was not an automatic acceptance either. For the first time in my life, I was setting boundaries with my family. I was deciding what I wanted, not just accepting whatever scraps of attention they were willing to give. After that conversation, I started making changes in my life. I called Uncle Ray more often. I joined a book club that met every other Saturday at a coffee shop near my apartment. I started hiking on weekends, exploring trails I had never known existed just an hour outside the city. I made friends who had no idea about my family history, people who liked me simply because of who I was. I learned to say no without feeling guilty. I learned to accept compliments without immediately deflecting them. I learned that my value as a person did not depend on whether my mother remembered my birthday or whether my sister returned my calls. Most importantly, I learned that I had spent my entire life trying to earn the approval of people who were never going to give it. No matter how successful I became, no matter how hard I worked, it would never be enough for them. And that was okay, because it was finally enough for me. I think back to that Thanksgiving sometimes. The one I spent alone in an empty office building reading about an acquisition that would change everything. I think about how devastated I felt when my mother told me not to come home. How worthless I felt when Sandra said I was always judging, even when I did not say a word. Those feelings were real. The pain was real. But so was the growth that came afterward. I am not angry at my mother anymore. I am not angry at Sandra or even at Derek. Holding on to that anger would only hurt me. It would be like drinking poison and expecting someone else to get sick. Instead, I choose to focus on what I have built. A career I am proud of. Friendships that fill my life with joy. A relationship with Uncle Ray that grows stronger every year. And, most importantly, a sense of peace that I never thought I would find. That Thanksgiving. I lost a seat at my family's table, but I found something more important. I found my own voice. And sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one that speaks the loudest. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever been told that who you are is not good enough? Share your story in the comments below. Let us build a community of people who understand that being quiet is not the same as being weak. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss more stories like this one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And remember, your worth is not determined by the people who fail to see it. Take care of yourself.